Many of us see vulnerability as a weakness. We see it as a place where we say, hey, I don't have it all together, and so I'm weak. But in reality, it's one of the greatest strengths that we can have. It's not about putting up walls, it's about saying that I'm willing to be seen, I'm willing to be authentic. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode, and that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about vulnerability and why it's important to our personal relationships. We spent an episode talking about how vulnerability can help us expand outside of our comfort zone. And today we're talking about how we can use it in our relationships. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome to day number 57 on our walk to consistency, my 100-day walk to consistency. Glad that you're here. Remember, each day that you show up, each day that you're consistent, each day that you are here, we're adding another piece to the puzzle to make us stronger, more consistent, more self-confident, and help us to move into the space where we can be successful. Thank you for joining me. Let's go ahead. I'll see you on the walk. So we've been talking a lot about relationships, building relationships, creating networks, finding mentors, finding peers, finding accountability partners. But in all those relationships, one of the most important aspects of the connection that you're going to make is being vulnerable. Well, I should say being authentic. And in order to be authentic, you have to be vulnerable. And I'm going to I always throw my hands up, right? So one of my fears has always been people seeing the real me. I was very much conscious of this concept that everybody talks about, this imposter syndrome. And so for me, being vulnerable meant exposing myself in a place where I did not feel comfortable. And part of my growth, as you've seen, as you watched my channel, part of my growth has been actually being able to allow my viewers, allow my family, even my friends sometimes, to see parts of me that have been uncomfortable. And you've watched me, right? You watched me talk about medical school and talk about my life and talk about my food addiction and talk about obesity and all of those things. That is, for me, was very difficult. And it took a lot of talk, a lot of thought, a lot of structure. It took a lot of people, a lot of time to help bring me to the point where I felt vulnerable. I felt safe to be vulnerable, and I'll make a point about that safety in a minute. It felt safe to be vulnerable so that I can show up as my authentic self, because that is so important. If we're going to be successful, then the authenticity has to be there, because there's no reason, there's no purpose in arriving at a location that you decided to go to based on the person that you portrayed when that person is not really you. Because when you get there, the real you may not like that. And so our goal is to be authentic. And in order to be authentic, we have to be vulnerable. So being open, sharing your fears, your struggles, your truth. This is what it's about. This is the key to much of what we do. Often in our lives, the reason that we don't succeed is that we are afraid of trying, right? You cannot be successful without having some times when you don't do it right, where things don't quite work out the way you thought it was going to be, where the plans didn't come to fruition, right? In order for that to happen, then you've got to try some things. And in order to try some things, you've got to be vulnerable. Vulnerability, it's not a weakness. It's actually a bridge. It's how we create a deeper connection to those things around us, to the people around us. It's how we enhance our why. Because we have a why, but that why gets richer. It gets deeper. It becomes more connected when we are authentic, when we're vulnerable. And so that's our discussion that we'll have today about vulnerability and why that's important in our relationships, how that sets us up for success, and how that sets us up for consistency. Okay, so what is vulnerability? Right, vulnerability. Let me read that for you. It is the courage to be seen fully, to share your emotions, to admit when you don't have all the answers, and let others in, even when it feels scary. You guys hear that? So it is the courage to be fully seen. So often we put vulnerability in the weakness column. Like, oh, he's showing us, she's showing us the real them, and so they must be weak. Well, it takes courage to be out there without a net, as it were, and to allow people to see that part of ourselves, to allow people to see the real us, to allow people to see the pain, allow people to see where there may be some wounds, some things that we don't quite have yet, and allow them to see that, and to stand there and accept, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, right? Because we can't always control, well, we can't ever control how people respond, right? We can try to control it, right? We try to control their feelings, so we don't say certain things because we're afraid of their reaction. We don't step into a particular space and give our opinions because we don't want to spend the energy to deal with the fallout from the comment, right? So there's all this stuff that goes on when we talk about being vulnerable, we talk about being afraid of being vulnerable. And so vulnerability is courage. It takes courage to do that. It takes courage to stay in a space that's uncomfortable and to say, this is where I am, okay? So it takes strength. And it's courage to be fully seen. Oh, I'm gonna have to put a pin there and hang here for a minute. So fully seen. Now, we all present parts of ourselves. All right, we present a part of ourselves at work. We present a part of ourselves at church. We present a part of ourselves in our community, in our clubs, with our friends, with our spouses, with our children. We present pieces of ourselves. But to be fully seen, to be vulnerable, to say, hey, this is all of me. This is the rugged, frustrated, anxious, unsure person. This is it. This is what I got. And to allow that to stand on its own. One of the things I have been trying to instill in my son is this concept that you are sufficient. And I've said that here. And you'll hear me, because that theme is so important for many of us. You are sufficient where you are. And in order for us to be vulnerable, we have to understand the concept of sufficiency. That there's nothing that needs to be added to me to make me sufficient. I always want to hasten here to say that can I improve? Can I do something better? Can I learn? Can I expand? Can I grow? Yes. But as I am right now, I am sufficient. And it takes strength, it takes courage to allow people to fully see us the way we are and to accept whatever they say, right? Because that takes some courage, because they may not like everything they see, and a lot of people will tell you, I don't like everything I see. And so we have to have the courage and the strength to be in that space, be uncomfortable, and allow it to just be the way it is. Okay, so vulnerability is the courage to be fully seen as we are and accept where it is, even though it's scary. Okay, it's saying this is who I am. These are my fears. These are my dreams, and I'm willing to share them with you, and I'm willing to accept whatever it is that comes as a result of you knowing and seeing the real me, right? So you know me, you've seen the real me, and how you respond is how you respond. I can't control that. The strength isn't in putting up walls. People think I'm strong because I put up walls, people don't see in here, and I'm in here, I'm protecting myself. That's not where the strength is. The strength is being seen, and still, when it's scary, still being there and saying, okay, this is what it is, okay? So that's vulnerability. So why is vulnerability crucial to our personal relationships? Wow. We could have so many conversations about personal relationships. Yeah. I've got some thoughts. I got some stories, y'all, for these personal relationships. And the personal relationships, I want you to think about them. They develop early, right? From the very moment that we are conceived, there's a relationship that's developing, right? With baby and mom. And there is this process that's going back and forth where baby's getting nutrients from mom. Mom is becoming more attached to baby even while baby is in the womb. And when that baby takes its first cry and mom sees baby or dad sees baby, I remember the moment I saw my son, it was like life changed. I should say life changed. Because here was this completely powerless person that was fully dependent on me for everything. And so my concepts of life had to change. There were things that I did that I said, well, I can't do that anymore because my son is here. I got to be here for him, right? So all those changed. So, and as we go through life, we're developing relationships all the time. Every situation we find ourselves in, relationships are being developed. So there's never a time where there isn't an opportunity to develop some kind of relationship. Now, we intentionally will form friendships, and these are the people we hang out with. But even when we don't form a friendship and people are, well, I don't like that person, or that person is not part of my tribe, or that person and I don't think alike, there is something that goes on in that concept, in the thought process, that is also conducive for relationship. There is a relationship there. Even the people at your job that you don't get along with, guess what? You have a relationship. And so why is vulnerability important? Well, one, it builds trust. One of the most challenging things in our lives is to move through life alone, because we're built for connection. And if we're going to have connection, if we're going to have a successful, rich life, then there has to be connection, and vulnerability speaks right into that. Trust doesn't come from perfection. It comes from honesty. It comes from openness. It comes from us saying that we're letting you see. I'm strong enough to be fully seen and still allow myself the benefit of walking in that space. So success doesn't come because you've hidden. It doesn't come because you say, I'm going to not let people see me. Success actually comes when we're able to move in a space, move in a community, move in a network that is our true self. Okay, that is our true self. So vulnerability builds trust. It says that, hey, here, this is what's going on. When you let somebody in, when you let somebody into your space, you're saying that I trust this person to see me as I am and not to reject me. Okay, essentially is what you're saying. And that takes courage, once again, right? Courage, lots and lots of courage. All right. It also deepens emotional connections. The strongest relationships are those where there is vulnerability. Now I've got somebody who's been constantly preaching that. And when I say preach, I don't mean in a negative sense, but someone that I know that's their thing. Vulnerability. The deepest relationships, the deepest connections are those where people know each other, where they're vulnerable, where they trust each other, and can say, okay, this is what I got, and I still appreciate you. I don't like everything I see, but it's part of you, and I appreciate you. And so we're gonna figure out how we get this done. Okay. So it builds those connections. When you open up, you invite people to do the same. When I'm telling about myself, when I'm in the process of opening up and sharing, then other people around me feel safe and feel trustworthy. So they now begin, drop something, they now begin to share. And so there's that symbiotic relationship that happens where we are sharing and we're building and we're growing together, right? So vulnerability builds connections. And then vulnerability enhances our authenticity. Yeah, buddy. So authenticity says that I'm not hiding. Right? So vulnerability is the ability to show what's beneath the curtain. Authenticity says that I'm not going behind the curtain. I'm going to be the true self. I'm going to let where the rubber meets the road, this is what it is. Okay? I'm authentic in my relationships. I'm authentic in my job. I'm authentic in the spaces I find myself. Remember that alignment that we talked about? When our behavior aligns with our purpose, when our behavior aligns with our purpose, there is success. But if we're not being authentic, we may engage in behaviors that don't take us in the direction of success because we're not being authentic. And this is where I mentioned before, when you show up at your destination and you have not been authentic, you've not been vulnerable, you've not allowed the real you to be in place, where you end up may be somewhere you completely dislike because it was based on the pretend person, the person that was really not you. Okay? So that person may like where you are. That person may like the achievements that you've made. That person may like the relationships that you've developed, but that's not you. Okay? So authenticity comes when we are able to be vulnerable. Vulnerability allows us to be our true selves, free from the need to impress other people or to perform. Oh, whoa, perform. Many of us, from the moment we wake up, we are in a performance because we're trying to get people to like us. We're trying to be that other person that's really not us. And so that takes energy. And it's a wonder that a lot of people become depressed. Now we watch them and we see them and man, he is so successful. She is so brilliant. She has all of these accolades and he has done all this stuff. And in their personal lives, they are miserable, right? Because the energy that it takes to perform, to be someone else all the time. And here's a kicker, right? So we all want to be liked because we're built for connection. We all want to be liked. I want you to like me, Dwain Woode. I want you to like this person. And when I'm performing, you may love the person that you see, the performance, but do you really like me? That's a question that we have. I remember there's one of the Superman movies, or was it one of the cartoons? Anyway, so Clark was the pretend person, if you will, because Superman is is his guy. And Lois was always fawning over Superman, right? She loved Superman. Now you would think that Clark would say, well, that other person, that other guy, she really likes him. So essentially she likes me. But no, in his mind, it really wasn't him. One of them was a performance. Okay? And so in our lives, when we are performing, we really never know, do the people around us like us? Do they like the real us? Do they like the vulnerable us? Do they like the authentic us? And because we're afraid, we don't show them that person. And man, I want to say to you, if you're listening, I want to say to you that you got to show the real person. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe they don't. But if they don't and they move away, that's not your person. That's not your tribe. That's not the space that you need to be in. Okay? Now, that has ramifications for a lot of people, which we're not going to get into right now. And as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself as well, right? Because there are spaces where I am not showing the real person or showing my real self, or I should say my real self. I'm not showing my complete self because there are spaces where I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. And as I mentioned before, in order for you to be vulnerable, we've got to feel at least some semblance of safety, right? And it's scary. It's scary. So vulnerability, authenticity comes from vulnerability, and then that allows for deeper connection. It allows for personal growth. It allows for expansion. Okay. So how do we start practicing vulnerability? That's the question. How do we start practicing it? Well, number one, you don't have to spill your deepest, darkest secrets, right? So it's not about exposing yourself. It's not about just saying, well, I'm just going to tell everything about me and just let the chips fall where they lie, okay? There are things about you. There are things that you've said, things you've done, things that are within you that it may not be appropriate for the people in the space where you are to know, okay? It's none of their business. You get what I'm saying? So it's not about just opening up and just dumping everything. You start by sharing simple things, sharing your likes, share some of your dreams, some of your aspirations, share some of your frustrations, right? We're not just going back in the closet and just pulling everything out and just dumping it at the table and say, okay, here's what it is. No, that's not what I'm talking about, right? But the you right now, the real you right now, begin sharing some simple things about you, right? Be the real you. Speak up in meetings. Let people know what you think. Let people know how you feel about things that are going on, about how they are interacting with you, right? When you're asked to do something and it really should be a no, then say no without feeling as though you are letting the world down, okay? Be vulnerable. Be authentically you in the situations where you find yourself, okay? So start small. Number two, be honest about your feelings. If something is bothering you, then say, hey, this is bothering me right now. I wish, whatever it is, right? So say that something is bothering you. If you are afraid of something, then that's something you could share in an authentic way, right? Not just, get a megaphone and get a billboard and announce it to the world, but in the small space that you're in. So yeah, I'm not really comfortable with that. However that goes. So be honest about your feelings. Allow yourself to be seen, flaws and all. Oh, whoa. This is one. I might have to stop and just process this one for myself. Okay? because we all want to show the polished version. We always want to show the, the part of ourselves that has arrived, that has gotten to the goal. But we never want to show the struggle. We never want to show on the way to the success, right? We just want people to see the polished version of ourselves. Perfection is an illusion. The most beautiful, meaningful relationships come from being real, not about being perfect, not from pretending that everything is great. Yeah, I'm gonna pause, let that one sink in. Because this is where many of us, myself included, this is where many of us fall down in this whole process, okay? Because we want to be perfect, and we think perfection is required for us to be vulnerable, for us to be authentic. No, it is not, okay? So allow yourself to be fully seen. Remember, that is what vulnerability is. It's the courage to be fully seen. Flaws in everything, all of it. This is what I got. This is where I am. And then create safe spaces for yourself. So encourage the people around you to be vulnerable and be authentic as well. Listen to them. Be in the space where you can support them. Hold space for them. When you hold space for them, they then feel that they can hold space for you. When they share in a vulnerable moment, then you've got to cherish that. That is a precious gift that they've given you. You've got to know how to handle that, so that when you are cherishing, when you are holding their gift, then they feel also responsible for holding, for cherishing the gift that you give them when you are vulnerable. And it is a beautiful thing to see the reciprocity that happens in vulnerable spaces. When people open up to each other in an authentic way, this is amazing. Now, everything that we do can be done in ways that are crazy, inappropriate, right? So this is not, you showing up to your friend's house and say, okay, I'm gonna be vulnerable today. Here's all my dirt. This is not about you intentionally creating dissension because, okay, I'm gonna be vulnerable or I'm gonna be true. I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna say it like I'm gonna say it, right? No, that's not what I'm talking about. Vulnerability is part of what we're doing in these relationships. Remember, we're trying to build a better version of ourselves. And so we are doing everything that we can to build a better version of ourselves. Now, there are places where we're not authentic, where we don't share, where we don't say what's on our mind for whatever reason. And the goal is in those spaces to work on improving that and to work on being able to voice our opinion without feeling as though it doesn't matter. We do that in a polite, we do that in a loving way so that we're creating spaces that are safe for being vulnerable. You just telling your mind, right? Just because you tell your mind, because all of a sudden you've decided you're going to be vulnerable and authentic is not what I'm talking about, okay? So we want to make sure that we are doing this in a way that the person that we end up showing is an authentic person, a person who cares for the people around them and cares for the community, okay? All right, let's see. Listen without being judgmental. When people are being authentic, you're going to hear some stuff that don't necessarily align with your thought process and your worldview, and that's okay. Pause, pause, pause. That's okay. I don't have to like everything you say. I don't have to like everything you think about. I don't have to like the way you said it, okay? Now, we're gonna work to see, okay, can we come together and can we do what we need to do to be successful? I'm turning around because there's somebody following me. I didn't want them in the video, right? So we're working on that. But I'm not judging. You say what you're saying, and I'm holding that because I'm holding space for you, right? And we'll talk about, what do we do afterwards? But that's what is going on in this space when we're being vulnerable. Okay? All right. Let's see. And be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind. Did I say be kind? Be kind. Let me say it one more time. Be kind. Okay. All right. Well, we can never end our discussions without having a challenge. And so here's our challenge. You ready? Make sure you're grabbing your journal and you are writing in the journal. Number one. So we're talking about learning or leaning into vulnerability. Leaning into vulnerability. So write about a time you held back from being vulnerable. I want you to think through your life. It doesn't have to be way back. It doesn't have to be anything, earth-shattering, but just a something where you were not true. You were not being vulnerable. And write about that. What stopped you? Answer this question. What stopped you from being vulnerable? Why didn't you share? Why weren't you open? Why were you afraid to let people see the real you, right? Write about that. And then I want you to explain or process, how do you think the situation might have gone had you been vulnerable? Right? So we've got a situation where we weren't vulnerable. Why were we not vulnerable? Why did we choose not to be vulnerable? And then how do you think things would have gone had you made the decision to be vulnerable? Okay? So I want to write that. Then number 2, I want you to choose one person, a safe person in your space that you are going to be open with about something today. Choose one person, a safe space, safe person. And it doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be, life-altering, but something simple. Share a dream. Share a dislike. Share a feeling. Share something simple with someone today. Be vulnerable. Maybe it's a friend, a partner, a family member. Maybe it's a pastor, someone from your church, someone in one of your communities. Right? So find someone to do that. And share something about your reflect. Then you're going to reflect. Reflect on how it felt. Did it strengthen your connection, you and the person? Do you think that things changed? Right? Do you feel like you guys experienced something a little deeper because you shared? Did it make you feel lighter or closer? Did it make you feel lighter or closer to the person? And then below on the page, at the bottom of that page, I want you to begin writing. Begin writing how you think being vulnerable is going to change your life. How's it going to change your life? You can be more authentic. I will have more courage to go after something. I'll have better connections. I will, whatever it's going to be. I want you to begin writing that at the bottom of that page. Okay? All right. So this was an amazing conversation. Vulnerability is key to a lot of what we do. And often we're not vulnerable because of fear. But remember, courage to have people see the real us is what vulnerability is. Not the pretend, not the fake us, but the authentic us. And if we're going to have deep relationships, if we're going to have those networks, those connections, those people that are in our network, our coach, our accountability partner, our peer, all of those, then we've got to be authentic, and authenticity comes from vulnerability. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode, and I'm excited that you're here for this another day of our episode. We're coming back tomorrow, and we're continually building. Each day, we're building a better version, more consistent version, a more self-confident version of ourselves, and someone who is more vulnerable. We're coming back and we're doing that. Make sure you are doing the challenges. Make sure you are working through so that you are putting to practice the things that we're learning. Remember, theory is what's on the paper. Theory is what's on the video. But it all takes shape. It all takes life when you take action. We'll see you tomorrow on The Walk. Bye-bye.